and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't have a mic, so I'll try to yell. Next on the agenda is the public comment. Public participation is encouraged in the Laurel School District. All meetings of the board will be open to the public except provided by law. Scheduled meetings of the boards may be recorded. Members may during public comment for non-agenda items or during the discussion of the relevant printed agenda items. Your attendance is welcome. If you do plan to speak to the board, please either complete the public comment card, give the comment card to the superintendent or myself. To address us as board members, please stand to be recognized, identify yourself, and briefly state your concern. Public participation is a right that carries certain responsibilities, such as informing oneself in advance of the issues being discussed, voluntarily being as brief and germane as possible, and not unduly repeating remarks others or you have already made. Showing respect at all times for the rights and opinions of others, whether citizens, board members, school district employees, or students. We do appreciate your commitment to Laurel Public Schools. Are there any non-agenda items for tonight? Wonderful, then we'll get going. Next on that is the correspondence. As always, we do appreciate our support from our community. We do have two from the Billings Lions Club, Sue Hansen and Jerry Leggett. I'm sure I've just completely slaughtered that, but that's what I'm going with. So we do appreciate that, and we do appreciate the letters that were written for those correspondence. Next is presentation. I do have two comments on that. Please remove item C. We will not be hearing from Charlotte tonight. And we do have a split presentation due to some conflicting with Riley's schedule for parent meeting tonight for some fall winter sports. We're going to move his to the next kind of end of the agenda. So we do have two presentations for tonight. But to kick this one off, Mrs. Z, would you present, please, for the boys'
more
golf?
than happy. In oral tradition and fashion, we would like to celebrate 5th of 6 years of the state championship Class A boys golf. Mr. Jim O'Neill, their coach.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I would like just to say a word. Sustained success like these guys have accomplished, it isn't an accident. You know, teams win championships just because a particular group, we're all born at the same time. But to do it over the course of several years like these guys have done, and it goes far beyond just the guys standing here. What these guys have done is making the most of an opportunity that you have all provided for them. Laurel School District has been unbelievably supportive of its athletics, and Laurel High School has done just an amazing job of really making it that all I have to do is coach, and all these guys have to do is play. And some of the people are in this room. Mrs. Z, she's making it. I just know that she filters things from me that I don't have to hear about, that I can focus on and take care of my team. Zeta's sitting right next to her. She gets us to and from our events safely, on time, without delay. It's amazing. I see Stacy here. I know that my classes are always tended to because they're going to have to deal with Mrs. Hall and myself when I get back, and we've proven that that we're going to hold them accountable. There are a lot of people around the room that we owe great thanks to. It takes the community, it takes the school district. We're all responsible for this, you guys. And what I commend these guys most on is not the way that they play golf, but the way they represent all of us. You'd be so proud of them. the way that they don't lose very often, so I do greatly enjoy that. But you know what? When they do, when they have been beaten, they lose with dignity, and man, they win with class. They do not. There's no taunting. It's not at the expense of anybody else. They just appreciate it, and it's kind of an expectation, and it is very, very impressive. I'm so proud of these young men that I get to actually. More than happy to answer.
I'm Eli Weisenberger. I'm a senior this year.
I'm Kyle Kanat, I'm a junior this year.
I'm Tracy Hart, I'm a junior.
Cameron Hackman, I'm a sophomore.
Brady McCullough.
Of our team who he had to take his final driver's ed test tonight, Sam Norman is a sophomore as well.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate it. It is an honor to watch you guys and the team advance year over year. So it's watched. Please know that for sure. So we do appreciate you coming, and congratulations again, gentlemen. Very nice.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our graph presentation. Mrs. Peterson, are we gonna?
Drive the dirt around.
Okay.
Is it big enough?
Yeah.
That's pretty big. First of all, what do you guys think of the floor? All who made it happen, our facilities directors, our maintenance man, our janitors, everybody, they made it happen, so I want to thank them. You've heard us talk about wind. And first off, I want to start about that it happens at West, it happens at Coastal and South in different various ways. But what I wanted you to know is what I know best, and that's how it occurs at Graph. Can you hear me? Do I need to put the mic on? Okay. Wind, what I need. And this is kind of just the process. What is WIN? WIN is for reading skills improvement or enrichment based on what each student needs. Math facts are also addressed on Fridays. And this is our WIN time schedule. Third grade's at a separate time from fourth grade, and it happens every day except for Wednesday, because that's when our early out does. And this is every single day. These students are getting an intervention based on their needs. We also have a full team approach to what we do with WIN. It is classroom teachers in the grade level, academic intervention teacher, that would be Mr. McKinney, Title I teacher, our Title I paraprofessionals, our general education paraprofessionals, our librarian, and our instructional coach, Katie Thompson. This is a team effort. Nobody decides anything in isolation. They review the data together, they come up with decisions together, but Katie will tell you more about that later on in the presentation. It's not going to be long, but it's going to be packed full of good stuff. How does it begin? Well, we did our Fast Bridge Benchmark Screener in September. And then we had early out professional development where instructional teams created focus folders based on benchmark scores. This is just the process. I'm going to give you the outline of it, and then Katie's going to go through and fill that in with what actually happened. Individual classroom teachers then met with the instructional coach and Title I teacher to look at intensive and strategic students for possible intervention and title placement. And then we take it away with Miss Katie.
Okay, focus folders. You probably heard that term quite a bit in the last couple of years, but it's a system that we learned through our consultants, Stripe, TLC, and they trained me in focus folder work, and then all three elementaries create focus folders for their students. So what is a focus folder? It's actually a folder. We actually brought it into 5th grade this year as well, so we are doing this K-5. And what the teachers do when they get their benchmark scores is they're going to look at 3 different subgroups. So for 4th grade, they look at their A reading scores. So let's say one of their students gets a 523. You look at fall where it says 503 to 525, that means that child would be a green sticky note. Okay? Then we're going to check it against 2 other tests, and in 4th grade, it's auto reading and phonemic awareness. Okay, so we're going to check their scores. We're going to look at this chart. They all get a chart like this, and it has the 3 subtests on it. And they make some decisions where that student will be. Sometimes it will be really nice and the child will end up in the green column for all 3 tests. Other times they may be in the green column for 1 test, the orange column for another test, and maybe yellow. So then we have to look at how is the child performing in the classroom? What are the common assessments we're doing? What's the formative assessment? When I'm teaching, what am I noticing with these children? Are they understanding the material that the teacher is teaching? So we make some decisions and we put them on their folder. Okay? The example I have up there doesn't have names, but this is an exact one from a classroom. I just rewrote it without the names so you can see what it would look like and protect the children's names on it. So then what do we do? So as a classroom teacher, I always looked at my students' data. But then I was like, okay, well, I hope what I do in the next couple months will get them to where they need to be. This is where the focus folder is very powerful. You can see at the top where the, right there. At the top of our focus folder, we have these white columns. Okay? This is what the students need to do in order to get to the next level. Okay? We want all our kiddos over here on this side of the focus folder. So what are we going to do to get these kids over here? What are we going to do to extend their learning? Again, that's where that what I need comes into play. So the process we did at Graph. Okay, the first thing we do is each teacher makes these. So I come to the schools, and I've done this at all 3 schools, and we sit down and the teachers put their data in. Okay? The next thing that we did at Graph is Rachel Myers, she's the title teacher, and myself met with each teacher for 20 minutes. And we looked at our kids. This is called our strategic and our intensive students. We looked at them. And we looked at their scores. We talked about their performance in the classroom, performance in previous years. Do they need an intervention? A title intervention. Okay, do they need to be working with Rachel? And so we just had a conversation with each teacher. Now, we ended up with a lot of students, so we have to prioritize those lists for the title intervention. After that, these are pictures here. We met for an hour with each grade level. And what we did, and you can see that they have their focus folders, is we made one big giant focus folder, okay, on the spreadsheet. Teachers put in their kids, and then we created the groups. First thing we always look at is our intensive students and getting those groups very small, because if we're going to move children in the most intensive groups, we can't have a class of 20 to get them to move. We need small groups. We need 3, 4 to a teacher, okay? So we sat down, you'll see the interventionist in there, you'll see the title teacher, and we just sat and we discussed, and we talked about the kids, and we moved some. Maybe if they were orange, but boy, they're a bubble, they're really close to being a yellow, the teacher might say, you know what, I really feel looking at what they need up here, I feel this child can move up here. Because again, this is one data point, right? We can't make all their decisions just on this. We have to use previous year's scores, we have to use what we're seeing in the classroom. So then once we got the groups, it's very interesting. At this point, we did this last year as well, at this point, I just kind of pull myself back. And they're running the discussion. And it's pretty awesome to see the dedication of these teachers getting what their students need, okay? One of the grade levels had lots in the blue. We had lots of, blue means it's called college pathway. These are your above average to gifted children. These are the high, you think, oh, well, it's one teacher can handle 28 kids when they're advanced and high achieving students. But we had to look at behaviors. And what this group decided was, no, we're splitting this group up to it was like 10, 12, 13, something like that, where they split that group up because they knew that was too much. So we look at the whole child, we look at every piece of it when we're making decisions. Then they have their win time. Each teacher has been given one of these books, and it gives all the activities that was in that white part on what they need to do to get those children to move to the next level. They've also been given and created rings where all the activities are coded, phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary comprehension, just for a nice little, little handy ring for them to find the skills that the kids need. If they get into their win groups and all of a sudden after like 3 weeks, we have a student that's like, wow, they're really standing out, or they're really struggling. Do we make adjustments? Yes, we do. We do what the child needs. Then in January, when we take the benchmark again, we'll come around and we'll sit at the table. We'll look at our kids. We actually create new focus folders, and I can't tell you, I get a little emotional and I get a little chills as I watch as the teachers celebrate the movement the kids make. There's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something about this physical folder when you see a little kiddo in the orange, and all of a sudden now they're over in the green. That's a huge celebration, huge celebration. So we celebrate those, then we recreate our win groups. Okay, anybody covered everything? Any questions on that?
So you can see it's really what I need. We're looking at individual students and their gaps. And we've heard a lot about COVID, and we've heard about the academic gaps that have increased, but all research says this is a way you approach it. You approach it with consistent study, intervention groups based on the data and their testing. And Katie and I found out by accident last year when they did their January testing, we weren't prepared for this celebration. We weren't prepared to see that growth because we had never done it with the school before. And that was a much needed part. I brought subs in for a day, and we had the teachers go meet with Katie and the title teacher, and they could all celebrate together. Now, on some early outs, we do get together with grade level teams, the title teacher, myself, and the grade level teams, and we talk about what needs to happen. Where do you need more interventions? Where are we going with this? So we're constantly doing this. I think we'll be happy to hear this. Are we a PLC? Yes, we most definitely are a professional learning community. First of all, we talk about what is it we expect our students to learn. How will we know when they have learned it? Well, you can see through our focus folders and our testing and our conversations that are very collaborative, we do know what's going on. How will we respond when some students do not learn? Well, we base them on their need. But I think number 4 is especially important. It's something we don't consider a lot, is how will we extend the learning for students who are already proficient? Since they are proficient, it's easy just to say, oh, go do this. But now we have direct lessons 4 times a week that address those students who are ready to move. And so we are, and we know we're not perfect yet, because a learning community takes a long time to get established, but I can tell you that the conversations And my teachers' meetings are no longer about, okay, who's gonna do the copies for reading? Who is going to do, did you get the letter out to the teachers or the parents for Halloween? It's turned into, well, I need an intervention for this child. They seem to be really struggling with this. I've seen a whole shift in the way we converse as professionals. So there's a lot going on at CRAF, and we're new to it, but we wanted you to kind of celebrate with us that we're making movement with our children and we are a professional learning community. Any questions?
Are parents getting sort of brought into the collaboration with you guys?
Well, that's one thing we haven't done yet because COVID limited a lot. We're just starting with the teachers becoming very familiar with this. I think one way that is going to come into play is with our report cards. We've gone to standards-based report cards. And with the report cards going home, there's like a little storyline that says this is what they should be learning in literacy. This is where we are in math, and that goes home with the progress reports. But we do need to work towards getting the whole community into the buildings more. I have ideas about that. But I think my teachers really need to get comfortable about discussing interventions and their P scales and how that applies to their interventions before we go to the next step. But we did do our CNA, and we do realize as a district that that is one area we need to improve upon. Any questions?
So I have a couple. So I know that data points are really big in regards to previous years. We've had some tough years because of COVID. How do you find that FastBridge is helping in that assessment and metrics?
Well, the first thing I can say is with FastBridge, the test is shorter and it's easier for our kids to complete. There are not a lot of accommodations with FastBridge. We can just do small group basically, so we're getting a very accurate read of what the kids can do grade level wise. And I also think that the teachers have common points they can discuss with their cohorts and their grade levels to see what is a pattern.
Do you?
Lynn, could I
Yeah.
add to that? Sorry.
No, you're
But
good.
there's one piece that we're adding, is progress monitoring. So that tool is being added in, and every 2 weeks, the intensive and strategic students are going through maybe a 1-minute timing. In kindergarten, it's letter identification, and so they're checking their progress every 2 weeks. Because we don't want students to get too far down the road before we say, we don't want to wait till January if they're struggling now and not seeing growth. And we have a couple of our little ones that, they've grown up and now they're leveling out here, and so we're looking at, oh gosh, what is going on? So no, we're doing the progress monitoring for every 2 weeks.
That's when you are really doing it that much.
Right, and then so let's just quick, the testing, because of FastBridge, seems like it's shorter and you said easier.
Easier in the terms of sustaining focus.
Okay.
That's what it is. The math testings were very long and arduous, and what we found with our kids in the COVID gap is that they don't have the ability to sustain focus as much as they used to. We've noticed it when they silent read, we noticed it when they do their math tests. That's another thing that we're focusing on is perseverance and pushing through and sustaining focus.
And do you find that that's helping with our higher level gifted, talented students as well? Or are they buzzing through that to a point where we're not getting possible data points to help them too?
That does happen now and then. That's why we say this is a snapshot. And the thing is, if a teacher thinks a child just buzzed through a test and just goes, they can retake the test. It might not go into the data for the semester for the district, but it will pull up a more accurate score. And the teachers do a lot of front loading with, okay, this is to determine where you're gonna go for when, this is to determine your group. So they do front loading on what the test is for.
Can I add one piece to the advanced child? I've had a lot of work with the advanced children, but the COGAT testing, which does identify our gifted and talented children, I will be testing, we test all third graders, and that will start next week. And then any new students to the district, 4th through grade 8, they came in and their scores are very high and they have teacher recommendation, we will test them as well.
Thank you. Any questions by any members? We're good, thank you so much. Yes, and Mrs. Thompson. Ms. Joe, are we, sorry if I'm incorrect, are we doing a tour of the building or not? Is that just the presentation for tonight?
That's part of it, when we can, if we want to just talk a little bit, Wayne will present just on what we did in here, so you can kind of, you talked about it, but now that you can see it, it might help. And then if you guys would like to walk down and see what we did in one of the classrooms, we certainly can.
I'd like to.
That's up to the board, yeah, that's fine.
I felt just with some of the new members and, you know, we haven't actually been on site to any of the other buildings, that might be kind of nice. Sorry to put you on the spot, Wayne.
Never on the spot.
Okay.
In this room itself, what we did and what we found is that the floor joists were keyed into this block wall or the brick wall. What I mean keyed is they had a notch made in it where the joists were into. Over the years, with the asphalt and dirt raising, water comes in and you've got along those, and all the floor joists along this wall were just completely rotted away and was actually collapsing. Also down through the middle, there are 6 columns, concrete columns. Those concrete columns have started to fail because of deterioration of the concrete or the Portland cement inside those columns. So we went in and we jacked the floor up with screw jacks to get them in place. Once we did that, we leveled the floor out, replaced all the floor joists in here up to this point. Everything on that side of it was in good shape. So we had 64 24-foot 2x8s that we put in here. Those 2x8s, they all notched in, landed on a I-beam that sat on top of these columns. The new columns that we set in place, we dug a 4-foot deep hole, filled that with concrete, set our new castings on it, and then poured concrete around those. One of the big problems we have is groundwater in this area. One thing that we have not done yet, but are going to put an exhaust fan that will draw air through this and out the building. Right now, we have 2 sump pumps underneath there that are maintaining the water level now. When we started to investigate this, it was muddy underneath here to the point to where you would slip clear up to your knee in mud. Right now, it's dry, you can walk through there. There's some areas that are a little bit soggy, and I want to make sure with the air that we take care of that. After that, we had taken out all the wood floor that was all cupped, as you can all remember, and we went in and we put this flooring in. This is a 5mm thick plank flooring. They call it luxury length plank flooring, and it's working out quite well. Any questions on this?
We did a little bit of concrete work outside. Could you talk
We did.
about that?
Water was running into the building when it rained, so we went out and regraded that to where it would flow away from the building. Throughout the whole building, this building has got some challenges. We're seeing some degradation of some columns. We went in there, strapped them up, and poured concrete around the ones that were bad. And we're constantly monitoring it. At least once a month, we're going to go in and crawl the whole space, see if there's any degradation or any problems that we have. More questions?
Wayne, maybe help explain too why what we've done is not necessarily a permanent fix, but more of a patchwork of things. Why is that?
The cost to take and do that would be extraordinary. I mean, to meet what would be required under a new building, and that's what we would have to do. We would have to meet new codes if we came in and did a complete renovation. The way this was designed is kind of unique. All the floorboards were running at a diagonal, and they were a shear wall for this here. And we maintained that when we went back in so that we had that shear capability. But new codes and whatnot, they wouldn't allow a lot of the type of construction methods that were done now. I mean, the building's 71 years old.
Young.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, so, I guess you'll take us on a quick tour of the
Yes,
other
sure.
room. Anybody can join us, of course, if not, then you guys can hang out and we'll be returning. So we did do the tour, questions asked, some information given. Also, during that, I was informed that the item number D on Facebook integration, that was going to be presented by Ellie is not quite ready, so I'm gonna remove that one off the agenda for tonight as well. So, still under presentations, we are now down to the demographics by John Eisen. I believe you're not here, yes, I was gonna say, you were just walking around with us.
I'll have to say, this is probably the most difficult possible way to present this demographic study. That's just around a little group of, table with 4 or 5 people. So, with that said, I also remember about 15 years ago being involved with the school planning process before the middle school. Your new middle school wasn't a middle school, it was built, and this building was the problem child 15 years ago.
So she's just continuing.
So I'm having other flashbacks. Well, is everybody, I'm John Eisen of K-12 Consultants. Has everybody had a chance to review the demographic study update?
So the board did get, the paper copies. We did have one item on an agenda about a month ago. So we've kind of had a 30,000 foot view.
They had my lame attempt, is what she doesn't want to say out loud, but they had my lame attempt to explain all this. That's why we brought you back.
You said it was lame.
It's my lame attempt.
It's a difficult thing to go through, actually. You can get wrapped around a pole and minutia and little things. And I was asked on our tour, are there any copies of this available for public consumption?
It is on our website. It is on the October 8th. I think on the October 8th board meeting, and you can access that on our agenda.
Okay, demographic study. It's really, I've always thought it to be kind of the starting point for your discussion, your analysis, your head scratching about where is the school district going with meeting its mission as providing a place for kids to learn and teachers to teach. How many kids are you going to have here? One, no one really knows, actually, but when you're at a community meeting and someone asks you that question, why are we talking about more classrooms or any of that kind of stuff? This information is well thought out, it's analytical, it's comprehensive. So one guy said once to me, it's better than a kick in the butt. It's a good, solid way to answer the questions of why are we talking about additional space or more classrooms or a different school or any kind of improvements at all. It's based on how much has to go on in these buildings. And so this analysis looks at this question of how many kids are you going to have at 5, 10, maybe even 15 years down the road in a number of different ways. Some of them are mathematical, some of them are talking to people, and some of them are looking around and doing thoughtful consideration, quite honestly. All this put together, you can answer questions with some substance behind your answer to when people ask that question. Okay, so I'm going to be rather brief and open it up to questions, I guess, and try to answer the questions. There's basically 2 methodologies that we went through. Each one of those has different pieces. The first one, the first method would be a mathematical projection. And I've learned in doing this dozens of times with different Justin's old school, where Elder Grove, so you can leave now. There's a lot of ways to do this. We looked at historical enrollments, and the district provided the number of kids in each grade back 10 years, and projected those enrollments out for the next 5 or 10 years. It's kind of an exercise in developing trends and seeing, well, if the past 10 years repeat themselves, basically, what does that get us? What does that type of growth or lack of growth end up getting us? Another, and it's anybody's guess whether the past will repeat itself. Look at the economy of Laurel, look at the national situation, look at all the things that might have happened. But it does give you a number. The second model under this mathematical component is looking at birth rates. How many live births have occurred in Yellowstone County? Putting that into an exponential exponential regression modeling. For the life of me, I cannot remember that term. Anyhow, taking birth rates, putting it through a trend modeling, and then using a cohort survival calculation, which is kind of the typical traditional modeling for doing enrollment projections, which is basically developing trends for growth in each grade, K through 12, and establishing how many kindergartners are going to make their way to first grade, how many first graders to second grade, and so on, just down the chain. And you end up with totals. Another piece of this is also looking at out-of-district kids that are coming from other districts that find their way to Laurel for whatever the reason. Parents might work here, so they want to bring their kids to school. A lot of this has changed. This goes up and down, but your district has kept these totals for a number of years now, I think 10 maybe or more. And so that's good information. So that gives us another piece of information that goes into a total. How many kids for this out of district? You can also utilize that for, like, some districts when they get to a capacity problem, they cut off out of district kids. I know Elder Grove, Elysian School over at the Cades between Billings and Laurel, they've all done this off and on, just cut that off. Canyon Creek, I think, cut it off. So that gives you a piece of information. The other method, besides mathematical analysis, is looking at housing construction. Pretty basic, but it's a kind of a secret weapon. Sometimes this doesn't occur. Every time you build a house, it ends up with part of a kid, statistically. But you end up with 50 houses being built, or 10 houses, whatever that number is, and whether they're multifamily or single family, you end up with a number of kids. This is based, or this is a victim, you might say, of the economy, housing construction, houses are being built, houses aren't being built. There's no way of knowing what that's going to be 5 years from now, 4 years from now, or even next year, really. So there's, all of this has an element of, I don't want to say best guess, it's not guessing, but there's some conjecture in all of this. You just don't know how many of these houses are going to be built. But you do know where the vacant lots are, where the subdivisions that are approved, where the subdivisions are being thought about, or there's even rumor has it there might be, that kind of thing. So this report gets into identifying those different scenarios with construction and does some assumptions. There's a lot of tables and charts. All the analytical charts are in the study, and we can look at those if you want to, and I can go through them. We can spend all night on this if you want. Some of the more interesting, for those of you who have the report, the chart that follows page 23 looks like this. It's a list. It's, and then the accompanying, the map on the next page, which looks like this, identifies the location of those subdivisions or lots that are available for housing. And on the table 5, the blue colors are projects that are in the subdivision approval process. So those are serious, there's been money spent, but they're waiting, the lots aren't officially for sale possibly yet, but they're going to be. And then the yellow is where approved lots are available. And and you can see the number of, it gives the number of housing units and the kids that might result from those. It's kind of a statistical best assumption. So there's, depending on what you want to add in there, and it gives you a number of kids, similar things. One of the biggest projects that's coming down the road, and maybe some of you even know more information I was able to come up. There's a fairly large development out near the golf course that's coming up.
I think it's toward the middle of the thought.
Golf course condos, by golly. It's 77 acres, so a fairly significant project. And we're thinking maybe 88 kids would come out of that. It depends on the final housing mix that is finalized. It depends on a lot of things. And that's a lot of housing units for Laurel to soak up. But it's out there. It's something, this is kind of you can look at it longer term, rather than have some insights rather than be surprised, that kind of thing. So on page 28, there's conclusions. And for those of you who want to go to the last chapter and see how the mystery unfolds, it's kind of that. There's 5-year impacts, 10-year impacts, and 15-year impacts. I'll have to say, I have more confidence in the 5-year more than I do the 15. The farther out you go, the fuzzier the whole thing gets fuzzier. So we can walk through those and give numbers, or how would you like to do this?
Does the board have any direct questions that we want to answer on?
I can present the conclusions if you want to do that.
Or just a synopsis of the conclusion?
I think the highest of the highlights.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll look at the last page, page 28. The 5-year, I think, 5 and 10-year impacts are probably the most profound here. Especially if you're if you're entering into a planning process, you're going to be talking about architects and so on. This is the foundation for discussion. So 5 years, that'll be here before you know it. I mean, if it was decided next year you wanted to add on to some school or do something with this school, all these things, 5 years gets eaten up pretty quick when you're talking about construction, passing school bonds, making decisions, community process, all those things. 384 additional kids in grades K-12, which sounds like quite a bit. That's a whole school, if you look at it that way. But K-4, 123 more students. 5-8 should be your middle school, 11 more students. In high school, maybe even a decrease based on trends. You always get a little nervous when you say decrease. That's just from enrollment projections. Actually, let me start over here on this. I apologize. On page 27 is kind of those other, on page 28 and 29, it breaks it up into segments like kindergarten and K-4 and so on. On page 27 is the totals. So 5-year, you can see there's currently 702 K-4 students in 5 years. We're projecting 868. And in middle school, you have 573 now, projecting 624. And in high school, you have 628 now, projecting 690. more kids. And then you look at 10 years and so on. 10 years, you have 702 now in K4, projecting over 900, 974. 5.8, you have 573 now, in 10 years, 741. Couple hundred more kids. In high school, you have 628 now, projecting in 10 years, 729. So the report goes through, and 15 years, you can say the same thing. And the report goes through the why and why nots of how those numbers were generated. And the next couple of pages, it gets down to each component. For instance, 5-year impacts or 10-year, 15-year. Of those numbers, what was developed from enrollment projections, what was developed from housing construction, and what was developed from out-of-district kids. So you can see what kind of feeds into that total. So there's a whole lot of information in this report. You just have to kind of let it soak in. It's, so I hope that wasn't too confusing. I'm confused. No.
I think you hit the methods, which is nice, and then the highlights for everything. And like I said, we at least had a chance to discuss it at a previous board meeting and had a ability to go through and had some questions, but I think any others? Well, we have John here tonight.
I have two, I
Sorry,
think.
Chris?
So John, what degree of confidence do you project the year 5 projections? And then if we're talking about planning for our elementary district and maybe contemplating bringing grade 5 back out of the middle school and into some other new building, how many of these projected students are attributed to the 5th grade? Is there a possibility to break that down by grade? So we have a better understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just can't tell you standing here.
Okay.
Or maybe I can.
I don't remember if I had seen it, and I apologize, it's been a few weeks since I looked through this, but I don't remember seeing a breakdown per grade.
You could always just use a quick
They're actually
dividing.
I must have, I totally missed it.
Each one of these, all the summaries have been developed just by adding different collections of data off these color charts. And each one of these goes kindergarten through 12th
There you
grade.
go.
So you can get out your calculator
And just start adding.
and just start adding.
Okay.
So, enrollment projections is usually cohort survival, which, birth rates go into that and so on. If you want to know grade 1, you know, there it is. If you want to do,
Yeah,
out of the district, there's the same thing. If you want to do, this, and I can do it all.
okay. I'll go back and look through that. I had the hard copy at home. I'm looking at it sideways here.
I'm not I don't think it has individual grades broken out for the housing units. You do that. But it never seemed to make a whole lot of difference as far as the discussion.
Yeah.
You sold 50 houses, how many of them were going to be fourth grade?
Fourth graders, right,
I mean,
right.
and it'd be rather theoretical, actually.
right. Yeah,
But a number could be generated, it's just not.
yeah. So which one do you feel is more, would you have a higher degree of confidence in with your 5-year projection? Just the straight mathematical data or using the more, seemed like the other method is a little more, takes into more factors into account, might be a little more robust.
Oh,
Am I reading that right?
maybe. It's a really hard thing to say. I think the wisest way to go about that is instead of which one you think is the best, looking at the mathematical or looking at the housing construction, I think you look at them both. And just sort of go like this, you know, a little. Because it's not absolute, it's not guaranteed. It's proven to be rather good information though. I've been asked to go back. I mean, I feel like I got my wizard hat on, you know, or something, Harry Potter kind of thing, but a number of districts have had me come back and update, like Belgrade, just before I did this one for you all, did one in Belgrade, because they were getting serious about some things over there, and they wanted to have the last. And they felt that the information was very good to rely on. I can't sit here and say exactly, is it 92% accurate or 84% accurate? I don't know. I can find out. I ask the other districts.
Right. Okay.
But it's been, I think everybody, I've never been told that you were really off base.
Okay.
Sometimes things change in the town that we weren't aware of. You know what? At Elder Grove School, out there, hotbed of confusion out there. There's many subdivisions that no one had, right now, that no one had any idea about when this work was being done.
Right.
You know, this stuff happens.
Yeah, we definitely learned that 2 years ago, huh? That stuff happens.
Oh, stuff, yeah. Famous quote.
Oh, Renee.
Is there any consideration in any of these numbers to take into account the other, and maybe we just need to do this as a district, but the other educational offerings or the percentage, is there a way to gauge the percentage of kids in our area that are homeschooled, that are, I mean, I know that we, within Yellowstone County, have 2 new private schools just this year. I mean, those are drawing from public school numbers, obviously. And so I think that that's something that we probably need to take into account if it's not weighed in this data.
Yeah, it was not. In the Billings area, there's a number of private academies or schools, and the other thing is homeschooling. That's changed fairly dramatically after COVID. No, we did not look into that at all.
Anybody else?
John, would you be available if they have questions later, they give those questions to me? Is it okay if I contact you with those questions?
Yes.
We do appreciate your time and for presenting this to us as well. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Okay, following with presentations, we are now down to our action items, starting with A, policy 8205. This is the second reading. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve policy 8205 as revised.
Motion by Ken, second by Renee. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Discussion, public comment. Motion by Emily, second by Renee. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next on action item B, policy 5002. This is also a second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve policy 5002.
Motion by Dan,
Second.
second by Chris. Discussion, public comment.
I did change the wording on this to match our other policies. Just I felt like the wording would be relevant. It was brought up by Donnie last meeting. I thought that was a good suggestion. So it does reflect that language.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, motion by Dan, second by Chris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Letter C, policy 4125. This is also the second reading. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the additional verbiage to policy 4125.
Motion by Chris. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jenny. Discussion, public comment. Motion by Chris, second by Jenny. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item D, this is a required policy of 2335. This is the second reading. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve policy 2335.
Donnie makes the motion to approve.
I second.
Second by Emily. Questions, comments, public comments? Donnie made the approved motion, second by Emily. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Down to E for the RFQ. Let's do a discussion, since I do kind of have that listed as a possible motion. If anybody has anything they want to weigh in on, decide on what they felt per our presentations from A&E, Collaborative. Thank you, Christine. Phew, I can write those down. Thanks for the help. Public comment, I'm sorry, Renee, go ahead. What was first?
I guess first of all, I'll kind of speak to, we met as a committee for the, I always forget the name of our committee, but it's really long, facility something committee. And it had a lot of discussion there and kind of talking through why people felt one way or the other. I think the overwhelming consensus was that it was between collaborative design and A&E. Didn't feel as strongly about the presentation and the information that was brought by Cushing Terrell, but as just a vote on that committee, the consensus was collaborative design. A lot of that had to do with the feeling that they're very local, that they're very hands-on, it's a small firm, that they have an invested interest in making sure that the process flows the way it should, and that they will be involved in every step of the way as owners of that business. A&E, there were a lot of good points for them too. Personally, I liked collaborative design for those reasons that they're small, but I felt like A&E did a really good job. Obviously, their presentation was probably the most eye-catching and I felt tailored for us. So overall, I think the committee, we talked a lot about, regardless of what the board decides, that committee's input is just that input, and the board itself makes this decision, and regardless of that decision, that group is eager to work moving forward with whoever the board chooses.
Appreciate that, thank you very much. Anybody, Dan?
For me, it's A&E, by not even a small margin. They were, in my opinion, they were better prepared. They were, by far, had the most energy. They were excited about the entire process. I feel like they would be a great partner to work with. So, I mean, that's, when we go to vote, that's what we go for.
Thank you very much.
I agree with Dan. I was in support of A&E in our building committee as well, and there's a lot of positive points to collaborative and to A&E, I feel. But what tips the scale for me for A&E was just with the precision with which they met our specific request. The overall presentation hit exactly what we had asked them to present, which I really liked. Under the time constraint that we gave them, you know, as cheesy as it might sound, you know, they produced a very high quality handout with some great timelines in it. And that speaks to the agility of their firm to be able to produce things sort of as we need them. So I really like that. They have a great track record of success recently with other districts around here. And then in the last few weeks, I've had the chance to talk with some of my contacts in the building industry, and I haven't heard a lot about collaborative. I've asked about, you know, the three firms that we've had. CTA, of course, has a great reputation in Billings and beyond. But a lot of the contractors that I talk with who have worked with A&E had a lot of positive things to say. And collaborative too, because I had one contractor who worked on the Lockwood School and had good things to say about collaborative as well. But it felt like A&E just had, from their RFQ response to the presentation they made, just hit absolutely everything that we asked them to put in without a lot of excess. And so that's what sways it for me, but I will preface and say, like Renee said, that I'd be happy with either one. But what tips it for me are those things for Amy.
Thank you, Chris. I'm sorry, I was just gonna I know we have a couple of people, I think, do we have any comment from public? I wanted to just give everybody a chance, yes, sir?
I didn't know.
It's okay, I mean, we'll pause for a minute, I just wanna hear what you guys have to say as
Okay,
well.
so I worked with A&E when Dusty, who's the principal now, where he kind of runs the school. I worked with him for 2 projects, and one was when he was pretty young in the architectural firm. He was just an architect in there. His precision on kind of like what you were talking about, what you saw in the presentation is pretty much him. He is very on task. He expects all of his architects to work the same. He brought in for Elder Grove, and I think Collaborative and A&E, Tobin worked with Collaborative, had really good luck with him. I know with A&E personally, for me, that I can speak of, is they were right there with all the community engagements. They helped me and the board with how we can engage the community more. They're on par with when there's presentations. So when you're presenting to the community, I think it's also really important on how you present to them. And how Dusty and his team presented to our community was really well thought out, and what is the community needs. The building that you see out at Elder Grove is the building the community came up with. Even to the color. When I left there, they had a different color, and the board and some community members were like, all the schools are this color. So if you go to Elder Grove now, it's white. It's a purely white school, and the reason why they did that was because they wanted it to match the older original school. The school's 75. That school's like 125. But I just can't say personally enough about A&E and how they engage the community, how they work with the board members, how they work with, they'll be coming in working with Len Peterson. I know Collaborative will do the same. I don't know where Len went. There she is. They'll go with Carla. They'll have all the kids working on this, community members and everything like that. And they have it really streamlined. And I think the big selling point there is their track record on passing bonds. When they work with the school, that increases your chances of passing that bond, which we've struggled with in the last X amount of years. Not for lack of effort, but I think a lack of how do we engage the community. And that's one thing that A&E has proven. We can have the best plan in the world, but if the community's not behind it, it doesn't matter what it looks like and what it has on it. And that's one thing that I think A&E really has a track record that shows that they know how to do that. I can't guarantee we're going to pass a bond, but they have a track record that shows that their involvement in the school system will increase that exponentially. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Justin. Other board members, trustees?
I just want to say that I have a unique ability to see what goes behind the scenes at A&E. I worked there as their HR director before Laurel stole me away. They have an extraordinary, talented team. They have the ability to have the foresight of the problems that you're going to run into that you don't even know exist yet. But they have seen it, they've done it, they know how to head it off. I can't go on about the talent in that organization. There's some incredible talent that are just hidden
behind some of the partners, but they're amazing people and extremely talented. They think about things like wayfaring, and they think about things like selling it to the community. And then after they sell it to the community, what does it look like? They're thinking constantly, and they dedicate the amount of time that is needed to get it done. And that's really important. That's all.
I think one thing to piggyback off what Peggy said is they've worked with schools throughout the state and everywhere else, and the school's completely different than building a bank, Shields. You know, it has completely different needs and how you work, how you run people through and stuff like that. So and I think Collaborative has done a few schools, and so that's why I like Collaborative, but I think it's also important that's A&E's, one of A&E's specialties, are schools. And so we can say that we want, 5 stories and we want a kitchen on the top floor, and they're gonna say, and they may say, well, if that's what you really want, that's great. However, these are some things in our studies that have shown that what will work and what won't work, and maybe we can think about these things too. And I think that's important when you're designing a school, not just what we don't know, but what's scary is what we don't know that we don't know.
Yes, sir.
I might add, and this isn't a recommendation, but I've been doing this for 45 years, I guess, the same process. And not to disagree with, it's just a choice of words. You're not selling it to the community. Like somebody comes up with an idea and sells it. It's a bottom-up discussion. So when it gets out to the community for a vote, it's their idea.
That's one thing I think A&E does really well.
More or less, A&E or whoever would guide that process very carefully. But it's a bottom-up, and by the time it gets out for a vote, hopefully it's already sold.
Thank you very much.
One last thing to point out too is that we're not necessarily voting on who's building our school. That's really where I'm getting my evaluation from, and why I like A&E is because we're looking at partnering with somebody to pass it along. And if it stays with them beyond that, great, but nothing says that A&E doesn't get this portion of it, and then construction is going to something else. It's going to be rebid, we're going to be doing this again and again. But their layout, their community involvement, the schedule they gave us, with the dates, and we're already a day behind because they were supposed to have facility assessments today. But I just really thought they were very well prepared in how to get us to where we need to be with the community.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from all board members, please, so please be.
I just had a great feeling about A&E from the get-go. Their presentation just got me fired up, and it was too bad the others got measured by it, I guess, but every time I think back on the whole thing, it just keeps pointing to A&E, and I haven't heard anything else to make me change my mind. And I also want to compare it to the last time we went through this process, and it is like night and day. Yeah, I'm just excited.
I liked how well the meeting was organized and how it felt streamlined, especially they're the only ones that really provided that timeline. That's why I like them.
I was most excited by A&E. They got me fired up. I think they'll get the community fired up. Their visuals were very easy to read and understand, and I think the community would definitely benefit from that. I'm about 50-50. Collaborative design really impressed me because they read our documents. They read our demographic report. They read, our strategic plan. They knew about Northwestern Energy's gas plant community. They really understood the tax base of this community, our schools, they took the time to really investigate at the proposal level what we are doing here. So really I could go either way. I thought both of them did great. Definitely more excited by A&E, but that was 20 minutes. So I mean, I would support the board either way, but both of them, I think, are gonna be strong, choices for us.
I felt the same way. The thing that A&E that really stood out in my mind was they wanted to make sure we knew exactly how much bond money we would already be going out to our community members at the beginning. And what is the community gonna be asking us? How much is it gonna cost us? And if we can hit that at the helm and at least give them, okay, yeah, it's gonna cost this much, but look at all the things that we also are going to, contribute to that. And with them just having that process and, like you said, the streamlining of that, I think that would serve the community better, just because the community would understand at the beginning, instead of going, yeah, rah, 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 oh, it's gonna cost us what? Right, instead of going, yeah, it's gonna cost us this, but this is what we're going to get, and we want your buy-in, and how is that going to help us? So I did, that's one of the main points I jumped on at A&E with, and then also that I love that they have such a streamline, they're gonna hit the ballots and the information on the same day. So we're not losing those community members to what's going on out there. It's gonna be like boom, boom, all information served right then and there. So I think that was something else that really kind of caught my eye. Collaborative, I did, you're right, they did do an investigation on us, so I did find that they at least did some homework to what we would be facing up against. But like Dan said, they might be really good at building buildings, but we need somebody who's gonna be really good at passing bonds. Because this community doesn't pass bonds very often. We don't, right? Who's gonna be with us, doing what needs to be done, being step by step with us, and in the community, just to let them know, hey, we're here, let's answer questions. So that was my point that I really looked at.
I'd like to get input from Matt and from Wayne. Going
I
through the
second
process.
that, that's what I was gonna say too, I think that, because Wayne had some good input at our mini meeting too. Matt did too, but.
I hear everybody, and A&E would be a good choice. They really would. I like collaborative right off the bat. They called me, they wanted to tour all our schools. They went in the crawl space of the school. They went out and they drove and they saw the new property that we've got. The whole while we were looking at it, you could see the spinning in their head, and they threw a lot of ideas out as they were walking. They were excited to be a part of this. They did their research. They knew exactly what our challenges were to get a bond passed. And if I was to choose one and had to vote, I would have voted for collaborative. But you guys all are picking on A&E. I think they would do a good job too. They're a large company. They have the capabilities in-house on the engineering side, so they can come in and evaluate. They don't have that at collaborative. So there's some positives and negatives on both sides. So I would support whatever the board decides.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you for your insight, because I don't think we knew those little details. So thank you. Matt?
I guess I feel a lot like a number of the board members here at that meeting. If I was picking myself, I think I would pick A&E, but I feel like it was 1A and 1B with collaborative design. For all the reasons that Wayne and we've had that discussion a couple times. I have a comfort level with both groups. I mean, obviously A&E came in maybe a little more prepared just visually. I love their ideas of how they would engage the community. And again, I looked at it as I did look at it a little bit from the building perspective, because in reality, whoever is our architectural firm that does this would have a little bit of an advantage, already knowing what we asked for and kind of having a little bit of an insight in it. Not that they would be guaranteed anything, but it would definitely give them an advantage. I feel comfortable with either collaborative design or A&E. If I was going to just pick one, I would probably pick A&E. but I would feel comfortable with either one. I think they would both be fairly easy to work with. I did call a couple of superintendents and talked to them a little bit. I called Shepherd, and I think Collaborative Design had worked with the Shepherd building, and they had a few issues, but that person I don't believe is with their firm anymore. But again, they worked to remedy those. I talked with some, that worked with A&E, and again, a lot of positive comments. So I feel like we're in really good shape, because I don't think we have a good and a bad, and we have to guess which is which. I think we have two pretty good firms. I just like the way A&E was put together. I just thought their process was, I like the way that was.
Yes, sir.
One other thing that I want to mention is that we've got ourselves a budget, $50,000 number. And I know in our conversations with Collaborative, they didn't care about it because they were more interested in getting this sold. When we negotiate with either one of them, we got to make sure that they can bring us to the finish line for that number.
Thank you. Because I was gonna comment on that. If you did see and read the recommendation, it will be whoever makes that recommendation.
So if we do,
Choose.
yeah, if we choose somebody to do it and they can't do it and the negotiations fall apart, I guess the board will have a couple of options. They could go back and then the company would be able to do it for the prescribed amount, or they could go back and restart the whole process, and we're assuming we're gonna have to go over $50,000, and we would have an additional process to follow, so it would kind of put us another month behind. Yeah, about a month, give or take, with all the advertising and all that. So, any motion we have would be pending negotiation process, because that has to fall below a certain level.
Do we feel comfortable to make a motion, or are we still just in, because again,
Do you guys have any comments? Because you missed it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you see the presentation? Did you?
Yes, I liked Annie, mostly because of the community, because I know from like what I've heard from in my own little life, that passing the thing is gonna be the most hardest thing to do. And I feel like really just even at the meeting, how they addressed everyone in the room also kind of stood out to me, not just the board members, so.
okay, so as it sits right now, there's a possible motion to go ahead and hire, depending on, of course, pending on the negotiation. Does the board feel they want to move forward on that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, now, do I have a motion?
Motion to enter negotiations with A&E up to and not over $50,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion to approve A&E pending negotiation, second by Chris. Are there any further discussion by the public, comments? Anybody else by the board?
Can our motion have a caveat that if that negotiation should break down or go above the 50, that we could negotiate with, so that we don't have to wait another month, for another meeting to make that?
Probably be a special meeting.
It would have to be that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't hire two, and then you can't do
Because
that.
what if they both agree to it?
Well, you wouldn't go to both of them, I'm
I
saying you
think
go to
we-
A&E, and if that negotiation breaks down and they refuse the $50,000, that then it would allow Matt to immediately go to Collaborative and negotiate with them.
I'd feel comfortable if we would do more, I think, take 5-10 minutes. Instead of putting that
We're good at doing those noon board meetings for 10
on
minutes.
that.
Love it.
Oh, and I love it, as you see, I'm really good at it. We don't have time, people, let's go.
Usually you're driving down the road and you see a car.
Hey, I do my best work in my car. Don't tell me. So we have a motion by Dan, second by Chris. Any other comments? I do appreciate that.
I'm hearing what you're saying, but if it gets to that point, I think we should just do a quick meet. That's what we're all saying, it would probably be collaborative anyways, and so it might not even take that long.
I would put, Julie and Wayne and I could get with them fairly quickly and try to, any group that you guys vote for, we would try to, get through that process fairly quickly. So it wouldn't be 2 weeks down the road. We'd try to do it as quick as we could.
So if they say it's 48,000, you're just gonna lock that in and go, we don't have to rehash this then? Because what Dan's saying is.
If they can negotiate it for $2, we're good.
Yeah.
If it's 50,000 and a penny went up.
They're gonna sign, the district will sign that.
Because the policy, he has the
Yeah,
allowance
that,
to do
yeah,
that.
good.
Right.
Awesome.
Everybody good?
Okay, again, motion to approve A&E with pending negotiations, second by Chris, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody, thank you. Well, we do appreciate it. It's kind of exciting at the same time.
Well, Wayne, let's meet in the morning and we'll move forward.
Oh, then we're back to business. Okay, fun and then back to business. Okay, on to the next one. F, our TR1 registration and school bus and reimbursement. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the TR1 for all three bus routes.
Motion to approve by Emily. Do I have a second? Any questions, comments from the board? Public comment? Oh, yes, Dolly, I'm sorry.
Zeta, would you mind speaking to M2 and M1 that have been included? What that's telling us?
Say that.
Because we've already approved the routes through.
M2 and M1 are new routes that are gonna be effective, so if they're not been approved yet, till you guys put it onto the new routes and to approve them. In the TR1s that are in here, trying to back up here, I don't think they're actually listed on there, they're the Y1 and YA1 and YA2. Those are the Yellowstone Academy routes, M1 and M2 would be the new ones for Moser Dome and Spring Creek.
Do you mind explaining why we have two new
Oh,
routes,
why do we
please?
have two new routes? I'm sorry, I thought we were back on the same
That's okay.
first one. Okay, so the reason we have the two new ones is because Moser Dome, with the conditions that road is in right now on Spring Creek, where they have a lot of the semi trucks going up to the tire place and up with the rocks that are coming down there, it is totally destroying that road. Bus 14, we've had the body bolts that hold the frame onto the bus onto the we're having apart, and we've lost the battery box out of bus 14 3 times, so it's to the point where we can't lose it again. We're not going to be able to replace that. I didn't feel that it was really cost effective for us to put brand new bus 22, which is the other 4-wheel drive bus, out there and just beat up another $168,000 bus. So it was cheaper for us, and it's better for us to be in the Class C buses for that route now.
So that's what you're using, Class C on those two?
Yes, one will go up one side, one will go up the other side. So that's why I did that.
Thank you, Zena. Any questions? Good? Donnie, you good then?
Perfect.
Okay, all righty. Motion to approve by Emily, second by myself. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. G, for the new routes, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the proposed routes for the 22-23 school year.
Second.
Motion to approve by Chris, second by Dan. Since Zeta answered that question, any other comments, questions by the public, by the board? Okay. Motion to approve by Chris, second by Dan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. H, our surplus property resolution. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to adopt a resolution regarding property abandoned, obsolete, undesirable, or unsuitable for school purposes of the Laurel School District, and acknowledge that the items listed will be disposed via sale, recycling, or refuse.
Motion to approve by Renee. Do I have a second?
A second.
Emily will second.
Question,
room space.
You wanna jump in? Yeah.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, please.
That,
The problem we have in the district, we have no storage areas. We have
Okay.
nothing. At the high school, if you come up there at any given time, you'll see at the back of the depot, we have a pile waiting to be disposed of. And we wait and only dispose of things once a year. All of our buildings just absolutely get overrun. There was a time when that stage up there had nothing but disposal items sitting up there for months. So it is really important that we get in a habit of doing this on a more frequent basis so that we can get rid of those materials, because you legally cannot get rid of them until you do this process.
So have these all broken this school year, this fall?
so, for the middle school, we got a lot of those desks are from the middle school, and we ordered new tables and desks, asked the teachers, went through, did a survey, it was a big long thing, but anyways, got some new tables, and because our desks, we had a bunch of desks that were missing the crossbar, and so when kids sat in and it flexed a little bit, and we always had a couple desks that just break, and actually, so we just got those delivered on Friday over the MEA, and so, and I told Matt that we were gonna be getting those, and so we waited till now so we could get rid of, because we don't have storage, get rid of those desks, so they're not just sitting around in the gym or somewhere else like that. We can get rid of the cushion.
A lot of it right now is all over at the administration, the old
Yep.
gym. There are some things that we do save, we don't get rid of everything, some things we save as replacements. So if we have desks that are in good shape, we will have a teacher's desk that's in good shape. We don't just get rid of things. The equipment on here, like drills and things like that, Wayne can attest to those, but eventually, these go bad. And we do have some old chairs, and, I mean, we have some old wood chairs that were from the 40s and 50s. I mean, we have desks with inkwells over there. We have, so we have some things that, they just get piled up, and then about twice a year, I'd like to, at least once a year, but twice a year preferably, go in so we just don't have a huge cluttered mess of things. Right now, we're moving things 2 and 3 times, and then it has to finally go to a place where it's out of everyone's way. And Wayne tries to get it over to the admin building, is our goal. And there's quite a bit of stuff over there, but we try to save the good things to replace things that do break down the road. We don't try to get rid of brand new and good things. Wayne, anything to add?
If there's anything that any of the teachers or principals need, they always contact me, and we go in and we take the good stuff out and we go ahead and provide it for them. All the schools are presently starting to go through and change from desks to tables. We did a whole bunch here at Grab. All those old desks, they go over and sit in there, and we literally got hundreds of them that are in there.
And I can attest, I've actually taken some of the office chairs that admin has got rid of. They have came to be my teacher chairs for my desk. So we're always repurposing and reusing to the best of our ability before we even look at going out. Yep.
Good question, thank you. Yes, absolutely, good question.
I just had a question too on here, and I think it's more like a wording thing, where it talks about real property. Is that just generic verbiage? Because obviously there's no real property being divested in this. Is that just generic verbiage?
Yeah.
It just has to stay in there?
Oh,
Okay.
for the.
It just
actual-
looked confusing to me.
The actual document?
Yeah, because it just looked confusing to me, because it just, and then you go, okay, well, what's the real property? You know, that, I didn't know if that had to remain in there or not.
So, and then if you go down to like whereas, on the second line, has found that the following property is, and then the list of the following. So that's just the bulk of the body of the document, and anything that's listed. So I think it's just covered for the listed items.
Oh. Because it had the colon after it, which would then like imply like if you were selling the admin building or something, you could put it there.
Which we would still have to do that process.
Right, and that's what I mean, that's why they didn't have to be in the public notice. That was the only question.
All the law, legal.
Okay. Even if there is no real property, so,
Correct.
okay.
I didn't sneak the admin building in there. That's-
I was looking, honestly, yeah, no joke. I was like, are we? I looked through. What real property are we
I
selling?
promise, there's nothing in there that's other than desk, chairs, and stools.
So this is, so to go off of like, just because this is kind of our first, so after this process, we put this in the paper or something to sell these things, or is this stuff with trash?
Well, yeah, you guys are basically giving Wayne and I permission to get rid of this however we see fit.
Okay.
I'm not gonna try to sell a desk that's been
Oh,
broken.
I didn't know if we had to try to sell it, or if we can just take it to the trash.
There's times where we've probably held auctions in this district, would that be accurate, Wayne? It really depends on what we're trying to get rid of.
Okay, so we don't have to try to
Things
sell
that are
trash.
broke, yeah, things that are broken probably go to the dump.
Yeah.
Things that can be salvaged.
Okay.
If somebody's reading.
And then you pay all in all.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Cause it makes it easy.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Renee and a second by Emily. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Okay, next is the superintendent's report.
Resignations.
Okay. And I know, Peggy, I pick on you when we kind of get down to that resignations, and I know you're still probably doing your record keeping as to why. And is there any way to know which buildings are showing more resignations and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So next board meeting, I believe my report is due and that will be outlined, but yes, there is clearly the one building that is significant.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any other questions on that? Okay. Discussion items. When Matt and I were meeting for our weekly board chair meetings, we discussed that we probably should just put back in the strategic plan, just for, since what are we doing right now? We are looking to possibly do some design, try to get an architect for the district, but are we also following the strategic plan that the district has adopted as well? I just wanted to kind of touch upon that, discuss if anybody had any questions. Do we feel that we're still moving where we need to be?
I did wonder that, because when I read through this again, I didn't quite know why it was on here. I was trying to figure out what had maybe changed in it. And
Nothing's been changed.
And that's kind of
It's
what
kind
I
of
did.
we should be doing kind of a quarterly review. Some schools do it once a year as needed, at different things. But I'd like to do it just quarterly, so it's in here. I mean, it's not something that changes every time we look at it, but, these were something that it was done a number of years ago by administration and by the school board. So it's something that a lot of you have inherited. So you really need to know what's out there, and down the road, some things can change.
And a year ago, just some history, a year ago, there was a good amount of district employees in that board that really kind of, dove back into it. But one of the comments that we were hearing from the employees in the admin were, are we following this? So kind of keeping us on track consistently. So it's not just, oh, let's put it together, waste their time, and then every year oh, yep, we're good, and we're out. So honoring their time and commitment to putting that direction to the district as well.
I wondered if we should add, and that was what my thought was, I was gonna comment on was, I wonder if, because of, in light of what we're trying to do right now, if it would be smart to add, do we think that the 1 to 5 year goals fit our plan for the, master planning of the district? Is it fit within the goals that are currently in here? Or should it just be slightly amended to improve it?
To my understanding, it fits, and I'm trying to find what page it is.
Page 7.
Thank you.
Page 7.
Mhm. So, the planning horizon of 1 to 5 and then 3 to 5. If you went through all that, I mean, the district has done a ton of enhancement on the learning opportunities in the last couple of years. And then kind of enhancing the relationship part of everything as well.
1C talks about infrastructure, enhancement of infrastructure.
I think that's probably where it fits in.
Yeah, that's where it fits in. I mean, you don't necessarily know what you're gonna do, but we need to look at infrastructure, whether it's renovation or whether it's building new, just like the committee's working on.
And yeah, and I didn't know if we wanted, if we wanted to just specifically call
I mean,
it facilities or whatever, and that's what I wanted to bring for discussion.
and Chris, if this wouldn't be, hey, let's just add it here, this would be another, we would want to bring everybody into that, subcommittee again, go through it, listen to all of the admin, listen to, the teachers, stuff like that, just so again, it's not just, oh, let's just dip what we want, it's re-looking.
It's that process that A&E, we want them to take us through that process of engaging people to find out exactly how are we gonna enhance our infrastructure. To us, just means we need to keep up with things and what that looks like, we're gonna get their opinion.
I appreciate your insight on that falling under infrastructure, because I was trying to figure out how it might have fit into the current goals as they were set, maybe, like you said, bring the group together again and amend it.
Well, and a lot of them sit in this room, Chris, I mean, there's a lot of them that have, or part of that, even, Karen, at the time when she was on the board, was the chair, so, I mean, if we wanted to redo that, we could, but these would be the people that we want to hear from as well.
I mean, and like I said, does everybody feel like that's where that sits? I agree with Matt, I think that it probably fits right into that.
Right, you go down to, for example, it's talking about innovation on area 3 on page 8. Talks about we will maintain an ongoing process of long-range infrastructure planning to ensure that we are meeting the current and future needs of our students, parents, and our community. So I mean, it's really addressed as far as, hey, we need to be looking at buildings, all of that's in there in some way. It doesn't necessarily specifically say build a new building or renovate, just constantly evaluating infrastructure.
Oh, I think that's great.
The 30,000 foot view.
Yeah.
And then narrowed into what are we doing?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, great.
Something that, I'm not a huge fan of this document. I mean, it's not something that can be reworked tonight, but it's just so generic, in my opinion. It doesn't lay out any specifics. On page 7, it says, strategic objectives provide direction and actions on how the school district will accomplish its articulated goals. I see very little actions in here at all. And it's not something that really needs to be figured out tonight. But if we're going to be looking at this document, I wouldn't mind going through and spending some time and actually putting specifics in here, not building flexibilities and alternative choices. I mean, what are the alternative choices? This is just very, very generic.
I personally believe, I think we have to keep it somewhat generic because that's why we then go to each of our buildings. Our buildings might be different, like, our kindergarten building to our high school might be looking at different based off of the needs of those students at their grade levels. So I don't know if it's going to be two unless I'm overthinking.
No, I agree with Brittany because I think we kind of heard a little bit about what fits inside the strategic plan, even tonight, what's going on in West with Lynn. So I think those things fit into the strategic plan. And then we're getting updated specifically on some of those program areas that they're working on. But I do agree that maybe there's a separate document outside of this, maybe that says, hey, this is how we're meeting this objective right now. Here's our action plan.
But I think that's what they do.
Yeah.
The admin does that. They report to the, everything reports to the admin reports to the SUP comes in and reports. I mean, so I think if we get too narrow, and I'm not a micromanager, but I think it then starts micromanaging a little bit too much.
No, it's not necessarily what we would be telling people to do, but it's what the district had. And yeah, maybe he's right, maybe there's a separate document that lists these things, but when I look at goals, 1 to 2 year goals, 1 to 2 year strategic objectives should be very particular. They should be a set thing. When you get farther out, 10 years, 15 years, that's when you get more generic. But for short-term goals, I think they should be specific actions that are going to take. It doesn't necessarily have to say we're going to create, 1 to 2 year strategic objective. We will increase our support services for students. I mean, what is that?
Intervention.
I understand, but I mean,
AIDS.
how do we know that we've increased our support services? Did we hire an additional? I'm not using this as a specific example. This is just an example. Like, did we hire an additional support service person? Did we add an additional program? Like, how did we increase our support services? I'm not saying we didn't, but this is just a very generic one-year goal that has.
How do we measure that we hit it?
Yeah, exactly, where are our metrics?
Yes, questions?
Donnie, do you wanna go first?
I'm sorry,
I've
Donnie.
been up for a while, but.
I'm like, the room is so big tonight.
I just wanted to add a little background history to the process. When I served as the business manager for the district, this was a project that the board worked very intensely with Montana School Board Association. And they came in, Deborah Silk would come in annually, really, and we work on different parts of the document. And
She did that a year ago.
did she do it? So how much of this board has been through that so that they understand the big picture, the big audacious goal? Maybe it's time to do that again.
So I'm honestly.
Totally.
Yeah, so I think there was really serving right now, Donnie, Emily, Dan, and I are the only serving trustees that did that. at that
So
time.
Dan, you did sit through and with school boards and kind of got.
When Deborah still came in.
Yeah, and I'd probably been on the board for a month or two, so I probably didn't talk as much. But then again, I talked a lot.
Didn't talk as much that time.
I know, but it's just, this is 12 years old, and I'm not saying that there's anything bad in here, it's just maybe
I think
time
it
to
is
take a look
12
at it.
years old.
But
I was looking for
if-
update.
I mean, there's been slow progress too, right? Yeah. I hear what you're saying, I do. But again, I just don't feel it can get too narrow, else 2 to 3 years, this board might not be sitting there in 2 to 3 years.
Well, hopefully in 2 or 3 years, the 2 or 3 year goals are checked off and you move on to the next one.
You have a new, like a 5-year plan.
Sorry, Renee.
I agree with Dan and I agree with Chris and I also agree with Brittany. I think that this document has to, in some ways, stay the way it is. But just like, I guess I look at it coming from what I know as in the healthcare field is you have yours, I mean, these are the standards that we as a board are hoping this district moves forward. And yes, we're not gonna micromanage that process because that's for Matt to go out to the administrators and then go to the staff to get that, but it would be nice to have another document that says, under the 1 to 2 year, these are the 5 things, or however many are here. How are we meeting that in each school? And I know that could be onerous, especially initially, but we as a board can't evaluate how we are doing in putting those goals out there, or anyone else evaluate how these goals are being met if we don't have that backup to it. It's not our job as a board to necessarily micromanage each way that the staff and the administration decide to do that, but we also have a responsibility to know that the district is meeting the strategic goals that we've set forth. And if we don't have any of that information in a document that we can look at every year and say, okay, we did this, check it off, find a new one, or how can we do it better? Did we move through that process? This document is pointless, in my opinion, because if we can't aggregate that information into something that we as a board can look at every year, this is just information that we have no idea if we're doing it, if we're not doing it, if we're moving forward. So I think that while this document may be great, I mean, looking through it, I had some wording things that I don't particularly love in it, but I think we probably need to work through that as a board, but then we also need to charge the superintendent with coming up with how are we meeting this? In a year or 2 years, how have we moved on from this to get to a new goal? Because we can't just live in the same goals year after year in some of these things and not know whether we're getting better or staying the same. I think that we do have to do something with this document. Not that it's not being done. I'm not saying that it's not being done. I'm saying that we need, as a board, because we're saying this is what we're doing, we have to be able to evaluate that as a board for our district.
Okay, okay, so if I'm hearing you and I'm hearing Dan, would it be something of a separate yearly annual at the end of the year that said, this year we did this, that served our strategic plan, and then almost make an addendum to it stating that in 2021-22, this is what happened and this met the goals. Because the thing is, the goals are still gonna be always, it's a living, breathing document at the same time. We constantly are changing, you know, this year was bridge, e-bridge, last year was maps. So that's where it's always constantly moving and
Well, and
growing.
maybe these documents exist too, and in these presentations, you know, like Lynn just gave us a presentation that meets several of these points that are in here, but in those presentations say, this is the part of our strategic plan that this is meeting, so that we as a board can true up that to see that we're making progress, because it's hard to tie the two together
It's really
without.
discussing how the rubber hits the road.
Yes.
And I think that's why I wanted to put this in there is, you know, I don't know, this was adopted November 22nd, 2010, so that's where the 12 years comes in. And again, schools are constantly trying to improve. And then we have if you remember right, you approved, in August, I think, you approved the short-term goals, but those are based really on this stuff. And I think a report on that, however we do that, yearly or biannually or whatever, I think that this is how the rubber hits the road. These are the things that we're doing, and we can make that part of what Charlotte presents too with the data. That could be a component of it, and try to put something together. I don't know if that's an August thing or you know, as we get data throughout a year, something like that. But I think that's a good time to do it, probably.
Oh, hold on. Oh geez, everybody's done.
If I'm not mistaken, also, the principal reports monthly are written based on the strategic plan. And the goals, everything that they report back to you, they're telling you how that ties in to the goals in the strategic plan. True?
But I do think kind of that yearly overview.
I just think as an aggregate, it
Yeah,
would be nice
yeah.
to look at it all.
It's another
together.
40,000-foot view, but with some specifics in there too, that talk about these are the programs, these are the data we're saying, here's how many kids, you know, we saw move from red to orange to yellow to green.
And the challenges. This was our goal, we didn't meet it because of this, so next year we'll try this, or
Potentially,
whatever, you know.
They're ongoing, because we always
Right.
get, you know, kids graduate, we get new kids, so it's a constant trying to tweak the system constantly. Everyone will try to tweak the system to make it a little better, and then, you know, something will happen, you get a wrench thrown and everything, and funding from the state, or lack of funding, or something will happen.
Well, this sounded like a great idea, but in practice, might not have worked.
Correct,
you
that
know.
happens
Yeah.
too. We move in and out of different things. Sure.
I think that's still a forward discussion we can have.
Yeah, I do think this should be looked at least once a year. But I like what Renee said about, first of all, what I wouldn't want to do is have the district have to spend 3 days putting together some report just to show us, and these are all the things we did to meet these goals, and have a big presentation. I don't want to create a whole bunch of extra work. So the easy solution is, for instance, tonight, when Lynn's doing her presentation about these folders up there, I hadn't seen that before. You know, just you mentioned that this goes towards strategic objective 1/A, building flexibilities, alternative choices, and innovations in our K-12 pathway framework and learning environments. So I guess if we just do a better job of tying presentations to this, almost like an annotation that this ties into goal 1B or 2A or whatever it is, when we see those, then in our head we know what's been done.
Well, that's why I really would like to quarterly bring back the strategic plan. I think annually what happens, I don't know about you guys, but the school year just flies by and you're like, where are we at again? It's May already, Jimmy Christmas. And so it would be nice to say, okay, every quarter, hey, when Lynn does a presentation, or, you know, Justin does a presentation, we kind of like, oh yeah, oh, that's where it might tie in. So then it's just top of mind status all the time, that we're constantly running and meeting the strategic plan somewhere, somehow.
Okay.
Green? I'm
So-
sorry.
So I'll talk to the administration about making sure we incorporate some of that in our reports, so that makes more sense, and then in mine as well. And then, that we can look at it a little more often from as we do these presentations too, we can tie that in. But really just trying to hit that, here's why we do what we're doing. The why is as important as the what we're doing. We need to know why we're doing it, which, and I think it's apparent why we're doing it, but still, it's good to articulate that.
So I just listened to what everybody said, and I hope I articulate this well, but in my previous district, and one thing I started doing was an action plan for the year that went with the strategic plan. So what it was we visited the strategic plan once a year as a committee. We had parent representatives, teacher representatives, and board, and we worked on any final changes, and if we do that every year, it doesn't take all that much. And then from there, we came up with an action plan for what our focuses were for that year. And so some of that could be pretty broad, could be on the principal, so it's not like you need to do this. But one of those focuses could potentially be we want to pass a bond, for example. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to get an architect. We need to, who's gonna be in charge of that? The board. Who's gonna reach out to the architects? Mr. Torix, stuff like that. So throughout the year, we can, instead of bringing up the strategic plan, which is this, it's a pretty generic document, which it's meant to be. It has 1 to 2, then to 5, and then 15. We go, okay, how are we going to reach our 1 and 2 goals? And we base our action plan on that, and then we work towards that. And so maybe the building, the schools, we're gonna increase reading scores, and so then we come up with our own school-wide grade level reading scores and so on and so forth. But then it's even more of a work, a live document that you guys know what the focus needs to be on as you're looking at that for the year. The other thing that I thought was really helpful is we went through the action plan, but this is a board decision if you guys decide to do this, is we went through the action plan before the board changed. Because you guys have worked with the school district for at least a year, and some that are leaving, it's been 3 years, so you guys are already familiar with the strategic plan and the action plan and the direction the district is going in. So a new board member that comes in isn't sitting there going, what is this document? What's going on here? You guys know that this is the direction we're going into, and then the following year, then they'll have a say, and it gives them kind of a starting point of where they're going. It's just another idea, but I found that the action plan gave the school more direction in the year, and the board more direction in the year to go towards its goals in the strategic plan. That's what I found.
And the definition of that action plan, we know exactly what we're talking about, but an action plan defines specifically what project's gonna be done. Like you said, who's in charge of doing what aspects of that project. And it just spells it out, so everyone has a document that says who's responsible for what, and the what are we doing and who's responsible for it, and the when, and maybe there's a cost involved, time frame.
We have to do that work, and we call them plan service. Plan service.
Sorry, I took Al's.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think, the strategic plan tends to be this, it's a documents over here, and it really shouldn't be. It's the driving force of what we're all working under, and so it should not be a one and done, and we never look at it again. And I really like Dan's reference of you revisit it, you tie it back, and the action plans is what's gonna make that document a living document. And I'm not sure it's always been that way of tying it back together and creating those action plans. I haven't seen a lot of action going on with the strategic plan. And so to really make a strategic plan work, you have to have that driving force behind it and have those actions and tying it back together, make it a meaningful document. otherwise it's a useless document, you might as well get rid of it. But to have a meaningful document there really will drive us and keep us focused as a district to move ourselves further down the road at a faster pace than, not having any solid pathway to get there. So that's all I was gonna say.
So you glad I brought this up now? I just shut my yap.
I do appreciate, good conversation.
And that's what action plans just give you something measurable, right? And milestones, so okay, we've achieved this milestone, so now we know we're this much closer to our objective. Yeah, we do that. I think most organizations are doing that. We're just getting ready to start our strategic planning. It takes us 3 months at the credit union to do that. So, it's something that we're always thinking about like how does, whatever we're doing fit into our strategic plan? And that's that action planning that we do. We get it allows that broader sort of aggregated goal to become really granular, so you can break it down into pieces that you can bite off and chew. So I'm wondering is it something that, and this is, I guess, a broader discussion, and I'm sorry for taking up too much time, but is it something that we do an action plan per building? Or is there a district action plan?
No, I would say there's some district-wide components to it, but it's building level, because each one of their goals is slightly different. So it's okay, here's what goals we're working on. Communication, for example, something we want to improve in our overall plan as well, strategic plan. But it may look a little different in the high school. It's got different people responsible for it than it will in South. So I think their individual action plans are individual by school, because the personnel is very individual and has to be spelled out that way. Some things are district-wide,
right,
but most things are school.
I agree with that. So I guess we do have a little maybe discussion, and you can bring us back on something like that. Does that work? Yeah?
I'll talk to administration too at the next principal meeting, and we'll have a conversation about what we want that to look like, and then we can bring that back to this group too. And
I think we'd all appreciate that.
we don't want to duplicate effort. We want to keep it simple, make it something that it's helpful. It's a helpful document, not a bureaucratic document that we do to meet some bureaucratic step. Hoop we got to jump through. It has to be something that has value to the staff and to the principals and to the community.
I agree. Okay. Good. All righty. Next one under discussion items is the audit update.
Yeah.
Favorite topic. Julie.
We'll let Julie speak first, but I've also told her there'll be no profanities.
Well, they wanted me to update my, my response to the audit because they added another audit finding. And this is so interesting. It's a late audit submission is the audit finding.
Really?
Really?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I wonder how we did that.
I don't know. Yeah, they did it. It's their fault, but anyway. So yeah, so they went through and they said the fact is, they said the conditions of fiscal year audit and reporting package is being submitted at the required due date. We reviewed the audit submission date in comparison to the required due date. The question cost is to be determined by a grantor. Effect, there is a potential for suspension or cessation and or state funding. The cause, the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic caused a delay in the audit, and as such, the required deadline could not be met. So then the auditor's recommendation, the district should take steps to ensure that its financial records are maintained on a current basis, reconciled timely, and audited within 9 months after year end. That was our audit finding. So, and then I don't know if you guys had a chance to read my response, but I did respond back. And it's been sent to the auditor, so they should be getting the final audit to us. They said we couldn't do the final audit until we got the response. But basically, if you want me to go to the last one on this response, was late audit submission. There were several problems in getting the audit complete in a timely manner. First off, Whitley started the audit in October 2021. In February 2022, the district was informed that the auditor that started on the audit in October had left, and there was a new person assigned to the Laurel School. In April 2022, when the new auditor was actually able to start on the district financials, the district was informed they needed to have an OPEB report completed in order for the auditor to complete the audit. Which, my understanding, OPEB reports every other year, so I had to have this big discussion with them, but they wanted an updated OPEB report. So we went out and we got that. It was completed on June 3rd, 2022. So the audit was already late because it was supposed to be done in the end of March. So it was already late in April. And then we get it off after doing OPEB, so that takes a month, out of it. Okay, so then I said the cause listed in this finding is the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic caused the delay in the audit, and as such, the required deadline did not be met. From what the district was told, there have been several circumstances within the Whitley firm that was holding up the final audit, such as lack of help. Wasn't then so much COVID, it was lack of help, so I don't know. I'm tired of COVID being an excuse. Here it is. The auditor has assured the district that they will start the 21-22 audit in a timelier manner and would have the final audit to the district by the due date of the contract, which is March 31st, 2020. So that was my response back. They have already collected the minutes for the 21-22 year, so that's a start, I guess.
Thank you.
That's the update.
Do appreciate all the time you've put into that, because it has been ongoing. Any questions?
So the previous year they had started in October. Have they indicated that they've started yet for this coming year, apart from asking for the minutes?
No, I've asked for a schedule.
They've not given us the date. Usually by now, by now, we've had a date that they'll be here, and they're here for usually about 3 days,
Yeah.
3 or 4 days. And we've asked them for that date, and they started collecting things and asking for things, but they've not set a date for us.
And you're keeping your email records again?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
I
we
keep all
are.
my emails.
Who's doing the audit? Is it a private firm? Or,
We're under contract.
Yeah, they're private, yeah, they're the outside entity.
and we have a contract, we have to keep.
Yep, this is our last year, the 21-22 school year will be the last year of the contract. So this year will be really out of the last school year.
We've emailed MTSBA, and I apologize, that's on me, I have not followed up, so I need to follow up. That's.
We're
And
looking at
that's
all
what I was
options.
gonna ask, was that, because we had talked about, in a previous conversation about this.
We have contacted the
Yeah.
School Board Association
It's
and
in
asked them what is our recourse.
Yeah, because I mean, it's.
I was hoping they would get back to us when I sent that to them like 2 months ago. But just because we thought maybe we could do something this year, but it's tough to find a new auditor this late in the game. Even if we had started it in August or September, we would have had trouble. So they're pretty booked up. There's not a lot in the state. So we're going to deal with what we have, and then obviously we'll make decisions in the spring. Personally, look for a new auditor. In my opinion, that would be up to the board, but that'll be my recommendation.
Julie, do you know what the minimum, like when they need to start, the latest, I suppose, they could start in order to complete it by the March 31st deadline?
A month ago?
They should be starting now.
October, November is usually when they're in schools. They usually schedule out schools through October, November, and then I've never gotten anything past the end of February if I've ever received a report, audit report. So this is quite odd.
And I heard just through the channels of business that there has been some major changes in the top end of the plate, which I think is causing some changes coming down. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I can't keep quiet.
I know.
So, and you probably don't want to hear this, but maybe in fairness to Whipley, I have had conversations with people from within Whipley, but also from other school districts and other audit firms, and audit companies took it really hard during COVID. It took a heavy hit on a lot of the companies, and it was super unfortunate that one of their lead school auditors, the one that we use, was kind of driven out by COVID forces. But I was personally very happy to see Tony's name on this letter that Julie had written back to Whipley, because I do think he is pretty highly recognized as a school district auditor among school districts in Montana. So I was glad to see that he was put onto Laurel's.
I think some of the frustrations, Donnie, has really come from the fact that we call them, they say, yep, you'll have it by the end of July. Yep, we're sorry, but we just got behind. Then in July comes, well, no problem, 2 more weeks, you're gonna have it. And then it's one thing to say, guys, here's our date, we're having problems, we'll have it to you, here's our 2 months, whatever it happens to be, 2 months, 3 months.
I guess I would just say, don't rule out that wouldn't happen with anybody else, because Bill.
And that's possible, that's a possibility.
But at the same time, Donnie, I mean, there was a lot of industries that got hit by COVID, and
I agree.
It no longer can be, it's like, yeah, so.
I think the reason that they put that late audit finding in there is because they kind of had to. They have a list of rules they have to follow. I don't think there was anything that
I'm
could
sure,
stop them
I'm
from
sure it was a
saying,
rule, and that's why.
totally beyond our control, it was all on the
I
audit.
hope they put a letter in addition to ours that helps explain.
Well, and that's why I went through the timeline to explain the district side, that this is when it started, this is what happened, and I went back to my email and did the whole timeline, because I wanted whoever reads this audit response to understand what the problem
That we
was.
were communicating and.
Mhm.
And Julie, I like how you put in the concerns that it could happen next year.
Yeah.
Because we have already had issues, non-response, Tony or no Tony, he's still not giving us a date, for this coming year, so.
I just don't like calling and getting, 2 weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks.
Yeah, it's
Well,
the
now
same
we're-
pattern.
We've been calling him since the 2nd week of July, or
Right,
first week
maybe
of July,
highly-
since it
Well,
first
I-
started.
Asked him about a final audit for this meeting, either this meeting or the 14th. So maybe by the 14th on
That's about 2 weeks.
that.
Okay, so we good, kind of all
Maybe
frustrated, but.
I don't wanna kick I don't wanna beat the dead horse to death, but like every month, can we have this as a discussion item to have like a check-in with the board to see if we have dates or how's it going?
I think that'd be a good thing to put on reports, like, for
That's
example, I
fine.
could
That's good.
a line there that says, hey, our audit is scheduled for November
Okay.
20th or whatever.
Superintendent.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's something
good.
that we can report back to the board, just how things are going. Now, kind of like once we have the audit dates, you don't really hear from them until you get that final audit report preferably in
Right.
February, March.
Even if it's followed up again, ask for a
Sure.
date, just something, yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on this if it goes beyond the next 2 weeks. We'll make sure you guys are aware. Feel free to ask anytime. I mean,
There's just a feeling of powerlessness though with it, because what do we do?
Well, we feel like we're being held accountable for something that we can't control, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, why, we're getting an audit finding. Okay, well, we understand that. I guess technically we are late, but well, talk to them. I mean, they're the ones that are late.
Well, then what bothers me is what Donnie said, what they could affect us legal bond.
Good.
It could affect, there could be some, effects to it, that's why it's really important to stay on top of it, and try to,
Bond rating to be affected. I mean,
and try to have timelines.
Potentially.
All right, fun stuff. Anything else? Good, okay, moving on. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Wow, Dan, what are you trying to say?
Whoa, I'll second it.
Chris, with the second. Motion to approve the consent agenda, second by Chris. Any comments, public comments?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank the board for approving that job description on the speech language pathologist assistant. We got an application the next day, and that is the person that we hired. So thank you for that. Made my job easier.
Thank you. Good, thank you. Questions, comments? Okay. Motion to approve by Dan, second by Chris. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Riley, we're so happy that you came.
Yeah, I'll make this short and quick.
Oh, this is the one I was waiting to hear.
Well, I'm assuming everyone saw the,
Well, let's see, did everybody get the email? Did everybody see the email from, it was an email from the oral position?
it's gonna cost a lot of money.
Riley, how much?
So, so I went, when I was getting kind of quotes for uniforms and stuff, I tried to just go as cheap kind of as possible, but having been a baseball coach, being a baseball player, you know, certain things like uniforms, those get beat up pretty quick. You know, ideally, we wouldn't be going with lower end stuff to get, but maybe that's what we do to kind of just get us into it. That numbers that I have down at the bottom, it's about 23,000 for startup cost, and that's just in equipment. So that's not including coaches or anything like that. That's just equipment. I reached out to boosters. I also reached out to the Laurel Education as well. The problem, and you guys saw the email, hopefully everyone got the email today, you know, it's kind of hard for them to say, yeah, we'll give you 10,000 or something like that when they try to hit individual items for that. So that being said, boosters did, you know, offer to buy a whole bunch more than what they had originally kind of talked to me about. So that is a positive, at least for being able to cover some of these costs. You know, it's the yearly cost was kind of hard to figure out, especially since we still don't really know what that baseball schedule would look like. I don't know if they're gonna go towards like more like a jamboree session on the weekends, to maybe, because teams are gonna be so spread out the first couple of years as far as, you know, the East versus West. Like I had said, the Bitterroot and the Flathead are all pretty much gung-ho about it, but Central and Eastern schools may be strung out quite a bit as far as trying to get games. So, you know, transportation and lodging would be a pretty big thing as the yearly cost goes. You know, I'm curious to see if MHSA is gonna set up like a baseball, softball, maybe, you know, softball games are played on Tuesdays and Fridays, and baseball are played on Thursdays and Saturdays to offset officials. Most of the softball officials in the area are also baseball officials. So I'm really curious to see how this is gonna go for those schools that are having baseball this year when they also have softball. I know here in our pool, it's not a very big pool, and it would have a huge impact. So costs could go up if we're having to bring officials in from Bozeman or something like that.
You know, just something along with the cost, when it talks about travel and all that. You know, we do have issues with bus travel, overlapping sports. Zeta can attest to driver problems. Riley can attest to scheduling issues, because, you know, if you're scheduling 3 or 4 activities on the same day, you know, track's going this way, baseball's going here, softball's going there. suddenly we could have busing issues.
Well,
getting kids
yeah,
home and all
speaking
that.
of that, track is every event or every meet, that's 2 buses, no matter what.
Right.
So, you know, and then we're already with softball now, we're at 3, and I mean, we're still kind of hopping buses around and everything right now, even for postseason that started. So, I put in the coach's number as far as, based off of what an assistant and a head coach would be making. Again, I don't know, I feel like numbers wise, we would probably be able to support a varsity and a JV. I don't know, what other schools are doing as far as if they're only gonna offer it as a varsity sport this year or not. I know Billings have said, oh, we're going for it and everything, but I think they're also running into like the field issues, because you have 4 schools, including Central of the Billings area, and Lockwood, now 5, trying to find field space and everything, so. I reached out to the city. I did not hear back from them regarding fees or anything like that, so I did note that when I put that in, that it was just kind of what I thought maybe a fee would be for a lease. Granted, it could be way more than what the city would require us. I don't think it would be much more than that. If it was, it'd probably be less. You know, we're looking at somewhere between, you know, if we go with 3 coaches for a team, you know, that's 11,000 a year. So coaches, just like teachers, that's the bulk of your budget most of the time, so. And I guess I looked back over the sheet that ADs around the state had kind of contributed to and everything, and not a lot has changed as far as more and more schools going. I think, I think with anything like this, it's new, everyone wants to do it, but when you start kind of looking at the numbers and the logistics and everything, so, is there any questions I can answer or anything, Dan?
What's the season? When would they start?
So they're starting a week before spring sports this year, and their championship would be the week before state track and state softball.
So what month? When?
So March to May.
And so how does that not interfere with Legion?
Well, right, and so I still haven't really heard a definitive answer as to what that's gonna look like, which is why I'm kind of that mindset we watch and see kind of how it impacts local legions and everything. Because the last thing we want to do is kill our legion program here, which is, you know, it's a pretty good legion program, but.
Well, and the members that I have spoken to in the Legion program are actually looking forward to a high school. A couple different reasons. One, because the high school baseball kids get looked at colleges quicker than the Legion teams do, and then there's an overlap that they can play high school and then play Legion, because Legion doesn't technically start until like May for full-on games, and then it runs through all summer.
And so my understanding, Legion cannot play any conference games until June 1st. So most of their May ones are those away tournaments that they go to. You know, if I was a Legion coach, I kind of see it as if it is offered at a school, it would be sure nice for me not to have to do all that preseason training with my team and rely on the high school to do that, but, yeah.
Could you just talk briefly about the Title IX implications?
So currently we're 9-8, so we have 9 women's sports and 8 men's sports. So this would equal out. It would equal it out and put it at 9-9, yes.
But Title IX doesn't say that you have to have the same number of sports, so you have to have the same number of opportunities.
Correct.
So I mean, you could have one female sport that has 100 participants, and you could have 10 male sports that have 10 participants each, and that's equal.
If you think about it, everything kind of matches up: softball, baseball, track, golf, cross country. The one that doesn't right now match up, that are paired together, and that's the volleyball, football. And if you look at volleyball from a whole span, you have, 3 teams. Football, we do have the 2 teams, so there is a few more opportunities in the football realm because there's more kids on the field at any given time. So that's how we've kind of done the 9 and 8, because we do have that extra added girls wrestling. We were able to say, well, we still have the opportunities. So a lot of schools, we're still looking at it as kind of the 9 and 9. So you're right, if you go by the letter of it, either one's probably gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be okay on that. But it is something that is a yearly cost. We have to look at budgetary items. Again, I'm pro anything that gets kids involved. So I wanna lead with that. But the other side of me says, okay, we also have to make sure this fits. And I've not sat down with Julie and we look at the budget. What does that mean? It might tell us a lot when we get the legislative changes this spring. That might tell us, hey, we're gonna up everyone's budgets. Here you go. Well, hey, we can do some things with teachers and maybe we can add baseball. So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions right now. I want to add things to help kids and give kids opportunities, but we also have to make it make sense. We have to be fiscally responsible. Just because we really want it, we need to make sure we can afford it. Because realistically, when we're looking at something $25,000 type dollars a year, we have to make sure we can, maybe even more, we have to peel back on a yearly basis.
Yeah, and that's the thing with projected numbers, we can only project so much. Who's to say that we don't hit another recession or something in 2 years? And
So we've agreed that we weren't doing it this year.
correct.
But when do we need to make a decision if we wanted to do it next year?
I mean, from my perspective,
What about from MHSA, what do we need? I can't remember the dates on that. Isn't that the January?
yeah, yeah. But to be honest, I don't know if we still want to go that route because we still won't see what it's like. I'd rather I hate to say it, but I'd rather other schools, struggle and us be able to learn from that, but
Or we can just be the leader and show them how it's all done.
I guess I was just gonna, my point was just to maybe bring it back at the time that we need to, if you think it's something you want to do for 23, 24, and just make sure it comes back to the board in the right amount of time. Once the budgets are figured out.
How much ticket revenue do you anticipate getting?
well, if we're at the Dodger Field, it's not ideal for getting tickets there. That's the other thing. I was walking over here tonight from the high school and just kind of looking. I'm gonna have to add workers to be able to kind of manage the areas where people can come in, because ideally we get them all in the stadium and they're in the stands, but can't force people to do that. There's gonna be, but I would feel it would probably be, fairly comparable to, maybe some pretty good gates at, I don't know, volleyball, kind of like that, but ideally our gate sales basically pay our officials. It's kind of usually
If
that goes. Yeah, if we're lucky. I'm filling out the financial report for the football game against Libby over the weekend, and we took a $1,300 loss, so, yeah.
I think playoffs, we make money, we hate it, yeah.
Any other questions?
I guess, knowing the numbers is one thing, but like you said, busing and, there's other issues that would prevent us, even if we had all the money in the world to do this. If someone came and said, well, we'll give you, subsidize it every year. And I guess when you come back, if we believe that we need to move forward, that has to be considered, and that's the recommendation we would look for from you and from Zeta, because if it creates so much of a burden to the district, we have to weigh that against the opportunities for the kids. And knowing the numbers and knowing that we probably have enough kids that would want to do it is one thing, but the burden on the other side of that is something that I think we need to weigh heavily, because that's stressful for everybody.
Yeah.
Coaches, you guys, Zeta, I mean, wondering if a bus is gonna show up or, you know. So I think that has to weigh heavy in this decision, especially not knowing if we're gonna have any competition on this side of the state, if we're driving our kids
That school lost time.
6 hours across the
It's a
state.
lot.
I mean, it's school lost time, it's a safety issue. The farther you drive them, the more issues you have with safety. I mean, you know, just like everybody driving farther. I mean, I think that we need to take that into account. I think it's a positive thing. I'd like to see some of these kids that don't participate or just do travel ball. It's an extra opportunity and extra practice, like you said, just like softball is. It just means that their season, they get the opportunity to do more spring training in a live setting. And I don't know how that would detract from either travel or Legion ball, whatever those kids do.
Yeah, well, if you would've asked 18-year-old me, I would've jumped at the chance to get this going. But, 37-year-old me is actually looking at financials and stuff, so.
I'm sorry, it's something if we do decide, like, let's say we have to have an application in January. We come back to the board and we say, all right, we'd like to go ahead and move forward. I mean, we're technically not committed. It'd be the 2024 spring would be where we'd commit. But if we do this, we start moving forward because we have to meet some deadlines. At some point, if this all does fall apart, and I would hope it doesn't, but if it did all fall apart, we could pull out and not have a team. So we're not kind of like, oh, we just got to commit to 20 years of having baseball, or we can go ahead and say, let's move forward for 24. And if it does fall apart at that point, maybe we just realize there's no one east of the Rockies that's going to be playing baseball, and we just can't put that much mileage in.
I mean,
make that decision later.
I'm still skiing in March.
But I mean, it could just fall flat out on its face this spring, and it could be another powerlifting. I hope that's not the case, but I mean, it could blow up.
They did powerlifting for a couple of years and they cut it, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for a student athlete, that gives that student athlete just one more ability, because those boys at that level, they either make Legion or they don't, and if they don't, they're done. But if they had another opportunity to say, okay, I might not get Legion, but I can still do the sport I love, it just gives that student athlete just another outlet, it gives them another ability, it gives them another opportunity that maybe a college would look at that.
So I would ask you to make sure that you have an idea of what the deadlines are for us to apply to play for the 23-24, that spring of 24. We just want to make sure that we're aware of those deadlines, we meet those deadlines if the board chooses to move forward on it.
And if we don't get funding, then we can.
Right.
Anybody else? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Well, I just want to bring a couple comments. I have no baseball people in my family, but I do want to just bring forth athletics and extracurricular events. Sometimes, they cost the district money because we provide the opportunities for the kids, but it does bring money into our community as well. When we hold those events and they're staying in our motels and they're eating in our restaurants, so we have to remember that piece as well. Also, not all kids can afford Legion. And I'm just going to be the little advocate for the kids that can't afford things, and this is a great opportunity to build those skills up in those kids and give them the opportunity of once in a lifetime. They have one time around the sun, and that's it, to do what they need to do in life. And if we can make it happen, I think it's worth looking at, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there just because I think we tend to remember, yes, it costs our district money, but it also brings a lot of money into the community. So, just want to.
Excellent point, Allison.
Who knows, maybe it brings an extra 5 or 10 kids to the school that wouldn't get to play in Joliet or somewhere else.
A and B money right
There's
there.
your A and B money to pick from. Yeah, good point.
And
I think Riley did put a little bit into that cost, if you look at the spreadsheet. Am I reading it? So pretty probably 35 to 40,000 a year outside of the startup? Is that kind of what you're approximating in this? Between the coaches and the yearly cost? And you got some coach in the yearly cost too, 6,200 there.
Right.
But it would be safe to say, and especially if we have to bump up that transport because we're driving further, it could be 35, 40,000 maybe.
Well, based off the numbers that I had there, about 24 is kind of what I had estimated.
Oh, was that, so those coaches, because you had coaches on that?
Yeah, I just broke down the coaches just to show that it was a varsity, and I don't think the number got transferred over correctly.
Yeah, because it was 11,267 there and it's
Right.
6,200 over here. That's where I'm kind of coming into the 30.
So
35.
2 coaches would be about 7,700.
Oh, for the 2, but if we did the 3.
Then it'd be another.
I was just looking at worst case.
Yeah.
So like 35, 40 maybe worth it.
Sorry,
Right.
no,
Yeah.
No, I apologize. Now I'm gonna start pushing. Donnie? You got anything, you had your hand raised? No? No, you're good? You're good?
Just because I want to make this last at least 10 more minutes longer. But I was curious on, I wanted to hear from the high school representatives because that's where it'd be, so just kind of curious on what your guys' thoughts of bringing a baseball in there.
Personally, I think it would be a great opportunity for the students who play baseball. The only issue that I think we would run into would be transportation and funding. And that being in activities and having to travel, that's an issue we run into a lot. And I just feel like if we added another sport, sure, it's a great opportunity, but if they can't get to the places they need to get to, what good is it really doing?
I mean, if we can do it, why not?
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you. Both of you. Anybody else? Okay. So the next item, future discussion items. Anybody have any future discussion items? Okay. So the rest of you can stay if you want, and we come back out of executive session, but if not, as the presiding officer of this meeting, I have determined that the next matter to come before the board for consideration involves a personnel matter. Further, demands of the individual's privacy in this matter clearly exceed the merits of public disclosure. Therefore, I'm declaring a portion of the meeting closed.